Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see is limited to general financial information only. Please be sure to speak to your financial planner or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined with Jordan again. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. We're in Melbourne doing our recordings in the new office space.
We are. We've got 3 lights this time.
We do. Yeah, we're very lit up. Cool. So today we are doing a Q&A.
We are.
We've had a few people write in and ask us a few questions about their business, their situation, kind of what steps, get some advice on what they should do. So if you ever do have a question, in the show notes you can drop us your question and we will answer it in an upcoming episode. So today we've got a couple in here. So the first one is, I've been running a cafe for 5 years now. Financially, it seems okay, but at the end of each quarter when I do my best, I have no money to pay for it. So I'm always behind. I don't know if it's worth keeping this cafe, closing it down, or finding something better to do. George.
Tough question.
Share your advice.
I think the first thing to do is to make sure that you know your numbers. So whether you're on Xero, MYOB, you want to make sure that you're looking at the data and the business is profitable. If that is the case and cash flow is the issue, maybe taking too much money out of the business personally, that can be an issue sometimes. But I think step 1, like I said, Xero. Step 2, make sure that you have separate bank accounts set up. So that way you're not spending the BAS money, because in this case, it looks like that's what's happening. So how you can practically do that is have a separate bank account that you use for GST, PAYG, and super. So maybe once a week when you do the payroll, you'll transfer the tax amount and the super amount into that second bank account. And you can even do a GST estimate as well. If the takings for the week are 50 grand, then maybe you can transfer $5,000 into that second account. It's not going to be spot on, but it'd be round about the right amount of money. That way, broadly speaking, you should be able to cover your BAS when it falls due. Now, in terms of keeping the cafe, you probably, again, want to speak to your advisor, whoever it may be, and just make sure that it is profitable. You don't want to be on board a sinking ship, because it can go bad. It can go south pretty badly, and pretty quickly too. Like if you fall behind a BAS or two and you owe the ATO $50,000, $100,000, you owe all this super, you can have big issues very quickly. So I think, in summary, make sure you're on Xero, your data's good. Speak to an accountant. Have your bank account set up properly. And I think the fourth thing I should say is that cash flow spreadsheet that Dan's done, it's probably worth running through that.
Yeah, totally.
I'd strongly suggest doing that, to be honest.
Yeah. And I guess I feel like I've heard this a lot, and maybe it's through you guys, maybe it's through the inflection community, but I feel like I've heard it a lot where, particularly for service-based businesses like tradies and those kinds of things, as it comes to that tax bill or your BAS or whatever it looks like, and there's no money there because it's been spent throughout the year on or the quarter on other things. Yeah,
it happens all the time. It's so common.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's a really good starting point to have that second bank account, because the money is there that you can see that it's not yours to spend. It's in that savings account per se.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it's not ideal, but I mean, it's not nice to know, but I guess you're not alone. If the person that's written this in, it's a common thing that pops up. But getting on top of it sooner rather than later.
For sure. The next question we have is around marketing. So Zara, I'm going to ask you this question.
Sure, go for it.
So we've got social media versus paid ads. What's better?
That's a very loaded question.
Straight to the point.
Straight to the point. I like it. Well, they both have their benefits and they're both super different. So social media is really great for a few reasons. So social media is really great because it helps to build credibility and trust. You can use it to showcase your portfolio. So what I mean by that is if you're a service-based business, maybe you're a plumber, you can showcase what sort of work you do. You can do before and after shots. So if you're relining drains, if you're, cleaning block drains, gutters, whatever that looks like, you can do those before and after shots. So you can kind of educate people along the way. If you're a product-based business, maybe you sell skincare, maybe, you sell a certain product, whatever that looks like. Again, you can showcase what your product does. You can get user-generated content or UGC, which is essentially video testimonials of your product and how it works. So yeah, I think paid social media is really good. And when I say social media, I mean organic posting. So kind of manually or scheduling that content, not putting paid spend behind it. I think it works really well, particularly in the early days when potentially you don't have the capital for paid ads. because paid advertising can be quite expensive depending on what platform you're looking at. So I think that social media is a really great place to start. It's also really great to build a really solid organic foundation, because then when you do invest in paid ads and you pour accelerant to that fire, it's going to do more for you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't have any organic content and you don't have an organic kind of database or organic customer base, then you're solely relying on building a business by investing in platforms that you don't own. So I think if you're focusing initially in the startup phase on social media, and then once you have capital behind you that you can actually make a pretty decent investment into paid ads, it will do more for you. So paid ads is really great, potentially when you're further along in that journey. What you get out of paid ads is more sales and lead gen. What you'll get out of social media is more, awareness and reach and expanding your potential for customers. Paid ads is, where you kind of convert people into a certain action, but it can be quite expensive. So I think I love both of them. I think there's benefits to both of them. And when I've seen it work really well is when there is a really strong organic presence and paid ads has been brought in as a secondary to boost that growth.
Yeah, cool. So I guess if you are just starting out, then posting organically is non-negotiable.
Yeah. And when I say posting organically too, I mean like reels, really leveraging trends, understanding what's working and how you can utilize it for your business. Because if all you're doing is posting a picture that, doesn't have good hashtags, it hasn't been optimized, it isn't leveraging anything that's trending at the moment, then it is kind of dead in the water and no one's going to see it. So if you are going to be going to the effort of posting, then I would say do your research first, figure out what's trending, how you can really jump on a trend, because that's going to increase your viewers as well.
Yeah. So I guess it always comes back to that strategy, regardless of what area you're going to pursue. If it's email marketing, social media posting, paid ads, Black Friday, we did an episode on recently too. It all comes back to strategy and not just posting things just for the sake of it.
Absolutely.
Have some intent, do your research, spend that time to educate yourself on what's working and what's not. And then I guess if you are starting a business if you have had a business for a couple of years now and you do want to go into that paid ad side of things, is there a transition point where it's like, okay, cool, I'm at this point, now I'm going to start doing paid ads? Like, how would you make that call?
Yeah, I think it would be like if you had an organic customer list, so an email marketing list, the benefit of that is that you can utilize that data, you can feed it into Facebook or Meta. So it can use those data points, it can use the behaviors and the characteristics of your existing database to find people that are more similar, that are more likely going to buy from you. So I think once you've kind of, again, got a bit of a solid foundation and you've got some capital to invest in paid advertising in Facebook, Meta or Google Ads, then I would say before kind of just throwing some money at it and giving it a go, I would sit down and do a really solid strategy. So, go and speak to a consultant, talk to your marketing firm. If you've got an in-house marketing specialist, then get them on board. If you work with a freelancer, have that conversation, have a consult with them and really come up with like what that strategy looks like. What is the goal of you investing in paid ads? What are you wanting to get out of it? And then you can kind of work backwards and say, okay, well, if I want to increase my sales by X percentage. Okay, what do I need to do and what metrics do I need to be looking at on a regular basis to understand how I'm growing and moving towards that growth or that kind of core goal that we've set? And then you can kind of figure out, how much do I need to spend? How much testing do I need to be doing? What chat platform and channel makes the most sense? So work backwards. So I think, once you're ready to kind of make that shift into the paid space, lock in a strategy. So the other question that we've got here has been, I'm a baker and last year I started an online business and sell cake boxes each week that get delivered. They're ordered a week in advance. That's good. I really want to move to the next level, but I'm struggling to make the decision of whether I should bring on another person or what else growth could look like for me.
Yeah, it's a tough one. There's a few things to break down here. The good thing is that they're ordered in advance. So cash is collected up front, which is fantastic. The only but the thing that we don't know here is this person at capacity? So if you are at capacity and you can physically not make any more cakes to sell, then you will need to bring someone else on. But if you're not, then the decision isn't about bringing someone on. It's about getting you to capacity so you can then bring someone on further down the track. So I'll give two possible answers. Mm-hmm. Let's make an assumption that this person isn't at capacity. Mm-hmm. So if you're not at capacity yet, then the investment needs to be in growth, needs to be in marketing to try and get as many leads and then customers as possible. But if you are at capacity and you can, the leads are already coming in organically and that's all working really well, then maybe you can bring someone on part-time and then transition them into full-time. But yeah, it just depends where they're up to in the business cycle.
Yep.
So
that makes a lot of sense.
You get 2 answers for the price of one.
Lucky.
Yeah. So the last question that we have is, I've worked with agencies in the past, typically seen okay results, but it was never enough to justify the cost and a really good return. How do you suggest I go about marketing my products?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's something that I've come across before, and I've had conversations with business owners about this. And I think there's a few reasons that it can come about. I think obviously agencies play a part in the lack of education that they do with business owners. And I think that's really important. It's something that needs to be addressed. But I think in terms of business owner and what you can control, I think really educating and understanding your profit margins. So knowing what you can spend on marketing. So going back and saying, okay, well, this is what my product costs to manufacture. This is what my operational, like my fixed costs are, whether it's my cost to my website, subscription, wholesale, warehousing, shipping, those kinds of things. Figure out what your fixed costs are, find out what your variables sit within that, and then figure out what you've got left. Yeah. Ideally, your marketing spend should come out of your operational cost. It shouldn't be an additional on top of everything else. Because if you're not factoring it into your operational costs, then you're taking it out of your profit margin. So yeah, essentially your product cost, typically, again, it varies, but on average is about 50% of your cost of your product that you sell it for. 30% of that is 20 to 30% is your operationals. And so you've kind of got a 20 to 30%, profit margin on the end. So ideally you want your marketing budget to fall into your operational costs.
Cool. And what do you generally suggest as the marketing budget? Is it a set amount? Is it a percentage amount? Is there a way to suggest it?
Not really. And it really does depend on the nature of the business, what capital they have, how quickly they want to scale and how quickly they want to grow. Obviously, the more that you spend, the quicker you're getting data in. So essentially, if you're spending $100 a day versus $500 a day, the amount of data that algorithm can gather on those potential customers is going to be 5 times faster. So it means you can make decisions much faster. But you have to have $500 a day to do that. I think, figuring out that is really important. So then if you do need to go to a freelance or you do go to an agency, you can have a really intelligent conversation with them. I think the second thing I would say is educate and upskill yourself. And so if you're going to an agency and you want them to run meta ads for you, understand what some key metrics are that you want to be assessing and analyzing. So then when you go and have these conversations, whether it be your monthly whip, whether it be your strategy calls, they can be really informed, intelligent conversations with the agency.
Yep.
So you're less reliant on them telling you things, but more that you can actually read the data yourself. And I think that's when I've seen businesses be most successful and get the best results out of their paid advertising is when they've done that education. There's a lot of free resources out there. I mean, if you're looking at Google Ads and Google Analytics, they have their own Google kind of education academy that can give you the foundations. Meta have heaps and heaps of training. Also YouTube. Also TikTok's a really incredible place for education. There's so much out there.
Yep.
So I think, that would probably be my second thing. And then you can kind of figure out what your budget is. And based on what that budget is, does it make sense to do it in-house? Does it make sense to work with a freelancer, which is typically a little bit cheaper than working with an agency? Or do you have the ability and the capital to go with an agency?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That educate and upskill yourself. I'm such a strong proponent of that.
Yeah.
Regardless whether it's marketing, if it's accounting, operationally, whatever it is, if you're going to engage someone to do something for your business, you want to have some type of baseline understanding because the conversations that you're going to have are going to be so much better.
Yeah.
It'll be a two-way street as opposed to just having information thrown at you and you have no idea. So I think it's so important to educate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it kind of leans into the next part as well. Is that you need to be able to use data as a business owner. You need to be able to use data to make decisions. And if you can't read that data or you don't understand it, you don't necessarily have to be fluent in it, but you need to be able to understand what the data is telling you. As in, are your conversion rates, if you're looking at e-com, are your conversion rates good? What is your lead generation cost? What is that cost per acquisition, that cost per lead? What does that sales process look like? So then by the time that somebody does sign on to install an air conditioner or to have their plumbing realigned or whatever it looks like, how much does that cost you to get someone in the door and to actually sign them? So then when you do go work with your marketing specialist, you can have these conversations and you know what's coming out of it.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Good stuff. Like we said at the start, if you do have any questions, we'll have a link in the show notes below. So feel free to drop them in there. And Zara, if someone did want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the show notes, we've got a link. You get a free discovery call. We can run through your business, kind of where you're at, understand if there's a marketing channel or strategy that makes the most sense for you. Again, coming into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whether you're an e-com business, it's a really great opportunity to leverage. So I love chatting to business owners too and sharing some free advice.
Awesome. That's been great. Thanks, Zara.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.